Hello, hello, hello. We are live once again, Cody. Thank you for doing this with me.
Yeah, I can't believe what is this, the third time already?
I know. I think you might have had the bug. You got bitten by the YouTube and the Facebook and the live stream bug because I've convinced you and it's getting less hard to convince you to do this stuff with me.
Well, that's good. Yeah,
Are
I
you
feel like I'm still being dragged into it a little bit, but not as bad as in the beginning.
Okay, good. Well, today we are talking to two different audiences. So, my name is Laci. I am a Las Vegas real estate expert, lifestyle expert. My goal is to speak to my audience today who is watching on all of my platforms. And you, Cody, have your own platforms tied in. Who's your audience?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of my content that I've done recently and in the past has been really focused towards realtors.
Mhm.
But the reason I'm interested in doing this kind of a live event with you with a different audience is because one of the things I'm seeing in our industry is that there's kind of like this realtors versus buyers and sellers mentality in a lot of what's going on out there. And there's a lot of forces that are trying to bring extra disclosure and things for consumers. Well, I think the best way to do that is for the buyers and the sellers to hear the discussions that realtors are having amongst themselves, because I think that that benefits everybody, to be
Yeah.
everyone in the room for that conversation.
Yeah, there's always this weird line in the sand that we feel like we can't cross. Like there's some secret backdoor conversations happening with realtors that others don't know about, the public can't hear. So it was so funny. So Cody is a mentor of mine and we work together very closely. We have an awesome group of realtors called Synergy. It's a beautiful community at our brokerage. If you're a realtor watching this and you want to like learn cool stuff like we're going to talk about today, Cody's your man. You can scan that thing in the corner of the video here and I'll happily get you in touch with Cody. But we're always recruiting realtors. So please do that. And if you're a buyer or a seller watching this, stay tuned and listen to the whole thing, because what I'm hoping to do today is to bring a small conversation that Cody and I have been having behind the scenes to the forefront about one topic only that actually can be looked at from two different angles. The main topic that I'm bringing forth today is something that I'm hearing in every single phone call I'm having with every single phone call I'm having. And the conversation is, well, the market looks like it's crashing. Well, it looks like things are slowing down, or I'm seeing a ton. This is the number one thing. I'm seeing a ton of reductions and price reductions on Zillow and on realtor.com. And so I'm just going to wait and see what happens because I think the market's going to be crashing. When I brought this up to Cody and I said, gosh, everyone assumes that, but nobody really has any reason as to why other than price reductions. Cody said, what did you tell me about price reductions?
Well, I mean, the first thing I said is that we should probably look at the actual data and
Yep.
see what does it actually mean. And we see a natural ebb and flow in our market. And
Mm-hmm.
so, it's been about 25 years now that I've been paying attention to real estate in Las Vegas. Every single day I wake up, I think about Las Vegas real estate. And in that time, we've seen a lot of different types of markets. But really, what we see is sometimes we see this pendulum effect of where buyers come in higher demand to the marketplace, and they start competing against each other, which means that they're offering above list price. And so then you see sellers kind of react to that and start to really price way out ahead of comps.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they do that, and then an equilibrium sort of happens again, then you see a lot of price reductions coming back. And so there's kind of like a real price or a right price that's very steady through that whole thing. But what the buyers and sellers are doing in the marketplace is constantly swinging all around that sort of median line there.
Right. And I think in part of our discussion, you had mentioned to me a lot of times, because it is the way of the world, realtors and sellers are at odds, and they're not necessarily pricing the property. They're not pricing it the correct way because one person wants one thing and another is trying to maybe get them to do what we believe is the right thing. And it always just feels like everyone's at odds. So the goal of this conversation is to make sure that you leave today with a few answers. Number one, if you're a buyer or a seller or even a realtor, we're going to answer the question of, do we feel as real estate professionals, as someone like Cody, who has been in this business, am I allowed to say 20 something years, right? 20 something years. Do we feel that this is an actual crashing experience we're seeing, or do we feel like there's a market? What's happening right in the market? The other question we want to answer for you is, why all of the price reductions? Why is that happening? And really to help not only realtors, but buyers and sellers understand why that happens, what it really means for you as the public to look at and see what's going on in the market, and really what the results of all these things we're talking about is doing to us psychologically when we look at this freaking market that we're trying to understand, both on the real estate side and on the buyers and sellers side. So are you ready to get into it?
I'm ready. Let's do
All
it.
right. So I want to just let everybody know who's watching. Please do us a favor. We're combining our forces here. We're talking to realtors and we're talking to buyers and sellers. So drop it like it's hot in the comment box below and let us know, are you a realtor or are you someone who's looking to buy or sell? And where are you from? Where are you watching us from? And then I would love for you to maybe, if you want to participate with this conversation, what does a dropped price reduction kind of like all over Zillow.com, when you go to Zillow or Realtor.com, when you see price reductions and many of them, what does it make you think is happening? What do you feel about that? Drop it in the comments. Let us know. We're going to jump into this. So first and foremost, let's see and look at what everybody's talking about, because I've had probably 40 phone calls in the last 20 days, and every single call said, oh, how's the market? I'm seeing a lot of reductions. I think the market's crashing. So let's look at the market. Let's look at what everybody else is looking at. All right, let's see. We're going to, let me remove this and we're going to add this. So right now I'm going to go to realtor.com. That's one of the two websites that everyone and their mom uses. And right on this front page, Cody, look at this. New listings is the first thing you see, and price reduced is the second thing we see. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
So of course it's a marketing thing, right? Everybody loves to see when something's reduced, because what do we want? We all want a good deal on a home. We want to get a great deal. I even had a guy yesterday say to me, I hate to say this to you, but I'm really hoping for a crash. And I said, oh, okay. Well, we can talk about that in a minute. So let's just to narrow the field here. Let's just choose that we're only looking at houses, and we're looking at any houses for sale with a reduced price in Las Vegas, Nevada. First and foremost, I'm just going to start scrolling down. This is what everybody and their mom sees. So let's try to get our mind in the place that a buyer, seller, and the general public would see. First, all these first homes here, these are brand new communities. These are new homes that are not quite either not done yet, or they are they're going to be done in a month, or they're done and they're sitting waiting to be purchased. And sure enough, Cody, look, 22,000 off, 30,000 off, 40,000 off the top. If I saw these numbers, I would immediately think, oh man, gosh, there's a lot of houses that aren't doing very well in Vegas. What's wrong with them? Or, the market might be maybe crashing. But once I scooch past some of those new home communities and I look at some of the homes that are, listed, that are standard homes that are, resale, I'm seeing this first one over here is 5,000 off, $90,000 price reduction on that one in the middle. Eek, I wonder what happened with that one. 5,000 off, 10,000 off, 50,000 off. $100 off, $100. What the heck? Have you ever reduced a house by $100?
That's a little bit of a gamesmanship going on with the listing there.
Talk about what that is, Cody.
Yeah. So most buyers, I think it's like 98% of buyers are represented by a realtor who sets up an MLS search for them. And so when a listing wants to sort of get it back out there in front of all those buyers, they can make any change, and any price reduction is going to resend it back out to all those buyers. So I'm guessing with high confidence, that's what they're doing on that particular listing.
It's a little trickery. It's one of those backdoor conversations we have as realtors to say, how do you get that listing to be reblasted out? It's also probably a little bit of an uneducated realtor not realizing that everyone can see every price reduction that you do. It's not just going to push it to the top. So if you're commenting on this, I'm going to push over to the comments here and see if everybody is commenting. Hey guys, looking at a lot of people. We're going to answer your questions at the end, but let's see here. Let's see what everybody's saying. Has anybody said anything about, let me know, guys. I'm not seeing any comments yet, but a lot of people are saying, like, to me, at least on the phone, price reductions mean a crash is coming. And everyone that I'm talking to is saying, so I'm going to wait a few months, or I'm going to keep an eye on the market. So let's talk about what a crash really looks like. Let's talk about what we're seeing as it relates to those listings and those reductions, and what we believe is really happening. Are you cool with that, Cody?
Yeah, for sure.
So Cody is Mr. Spreadsheet. In fact, I basically say he's a walking spreadsheet. So what did Cody do when I asked him to get ready for this live stream? He did a spreadsheet for me and came up with some numbers. So talk to me through a little bit of what you have done for this, and then I'll pull up the information.
Yeah, so I ran a search in the MLS of everything that's closed in the last 15 days, basically trying to pick a half a month. Just thought that would be a good time frame. So this is from May 7th through yesterday, the 21st. And there were a total of, was it 918 total properties sold in that time.
Hold on, I'm going to
And
add it
so
to the stage here. Here we go. Hold on. Here
and
we
so
go.
we just started looking at what some of those numbers look like and what we were seeing as far as velocity goes and what they were selling for compared to their original list price.
Now, this is a general poll. This is like small sample set, but this is what we do as realtors, right, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a way for us to see kind of how things are trending, how have they changed over the last time we looked at it, things like that.
Okay. So when we pulled the data, it was important for us to kind of just really take a look at is the market crashing? So we look at things like days on market, average sales price, and how many of those homes are closing for the original list price versus something reduced.
Yeah, I mean, when you see here that the average days on market is 35 days and the median for that days on market is 21 days, you can see that even with a market where we're seeing lots of price reductions for us, and even where we're seeing supply ticking up a little bit, the average days on market for the total over those 2 weeks was actually really not very high. That's pretty quick compared to national averages to sell a property.
Right. And so when you're seeing tons and tons of price reductions as a buyer, as a seller, as just someone who's considering maybe listing your homes, considering moving, considering buying, this isn't information you can just grab on your own, right? All you're seeing is price drop, price drop, price drop. That's going to send you into a moment of like, oh my God, either yay, I'm glad prices are dropping. Maybe I can go in and get another 50,000 off of it. Everybody assumes when there's a sale that means you might be able to get even more off than what they've already dropped, which really doesn't make sense to me, but that's okay. Most people do think that, but it also just really gets you in your mindset that something is wrong with the market or something is wrong with those homes. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean that's certainly an indication of a softening market, but it doesn't necessarily always mean the same thing, right? So if people
Yeah.
are reducing their price, what we know about that is it means that they're not seeing the volume of traffic that they want to see,
And the other
right?
thing I want to clarify for everybody who's watching is a market crash and a market correction are not the same thing. A market crash and an evolving market or an efficient market, which I know we were going to talk about, are not the same thing. Can we talk about that for a minute? I'm going to put the numbers back up.
Yeah, I mean, those numbers are going to show you exactly what I'm talking about here. An efficient market just means that there's enough buyers and sellers transacting in the marketplace. Las Vegas is a big enough market that it's fairly efficient, meaning that you're not going to find tons of deals one way or the other. Sellers aren't going to necessarily be able to like trick buyers into overpaying for a house, and buyers aren't going to be able to trick sellers into just completely giving it away. Now, obviously, there's always exceptions to that generally, but Las Vegas is pretty efficient. And if you look at the result of these 918 homes that closed in the last 2 weeks, you'll see that the average sales price was 98.55% of the original list price. So
Mhm.
that's pretty close. I mean, there might be price reductions, but maybe it's a bunch of those $100 ones that are just for a different reason than really needing to correct your price.
Right. Talk me through some of these numbers here and tell me what your take on as a realtor, as a long-term professional realtor is when you're looking at this, does it give you comfort? What would you say to your clients, Cody?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the bottom line, and we'll get to this. We'll show many evidences of this, but the bottom line is you want to be offering as a seller a really great product, and you want to price it just right because that's really what hits the sweet spot. And we'll show some numbers later that talks about that. But that's also what creates a balanced market for buyers to be buying into.
Absolutely. So we have two audiences here today, which I love. This is super exciting. We've got the buyers and sellers, the general public, and we've got a bunch of realtors that we know learn from us or might want to learn from us. If you're thinking about that, just let us know. If you're thinking about moving here, also just let us know. I think I'm pointing in the right direction, that corner of the room. So as we're answering this question, is the market going to crash? I would say, but based on just that 2 week sample set and what we know in our hearts and what we know as we do this job, I believe we're simply seeing the market kind of correct itself. I don't even like the word correction. The market is just balancing out, in my opinion, but it doesn't mean it's not a great time to buy. What I don't believe right now is the best thing for people to be doing is waiting. Now, that sounds like I'm just a realtor saying, hey, make sure you quick buy right now, buy quick. That's not how we do business. That's not how I do business. But if you're looking for that deal, the aside from you waiting for the market to actually crash, which is not in the books at this moment in time, at least that's not what we're seeing, and we can talk about why in a minute. It is a really good time right now because while others are waiting on the sidelines, you have an opportunity to come in and work on a deal or a negotiation with our team, people who know what they're doing, to get you the best kind of deal possible while there's a possibility to do that. It's not an oversized seller's market. It's not an oversized buyer's market. It's really in a place to where you can have some good conversations and strike a deal. Can we talk
Lacey,
about why?
can you go back to that slide for just a
Yeah.
second? Because you're making a point that is really shown by these numbers. So the last two things down there in the bottom right of the slide, 82% of all the properties that sold during that time frame sold within 5% of the original asking price.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that I thought that I was actually really shocked by is that 13% sold for more than the original list price. Now that was that period over the last 2 weeks. That's if you had said to me, we're seeing all these price reductions, maybe the market's really getting soft. Maybe sellers are having to come down to buyers' expectations. I would have guessed that you would see, I don't know, 1, 2, maybe 3, maybe even as high as 5% that sold for
Right.
more than what the seller had originally asked for. But to see 13%,
Right.
that is definitely speaking to the other side of what's happening in the market.
I couldn't agree more. What can we talk a little bit about why list price is kind of irrelevant when it comes to cutting a good deal, but getting a deal, or even listing listing your home? It's irrelevant when it comes to what you're going to make at the end of the day and what you're going to pay at the end of the day.
Yeah, this is something I talk with buyers and sellers alike because, and we'll kind of get to another point later about how to price your house and how to not make that mistake and how realtors shouldn't be making that mistake. But what happens in our market is if a seller puts it out there at the wrong price, let's say they put it out there too low, everybody would be worried from the seller's perspective that means they're going to get a bunch of offers at or below the asking price. But what did we just see on the previous slide? 13% of all that closed above what they originally were asking.
Right.
So in our market, when it's priced too low, what happens is buyers recognize that because it's efficient. That's the efficient market I'm talking about. They recognize that and they realize that if I love this home, I bet lots of other buyers love this home, especially at that price. And so they ask themselves, what do I got to do to get it? And then, I wouldn't say we're seeing bidding wars because that's really not what we're seeing, but we are seeing buyers who, when they see the house they want, they're saying, no messing around. Let's just get way above it and get the house that we want. And we're seeing a lot of that.
13% just in the last 2 weeks of the closed homes are above what the original listing price is asking for. Again, to your point, Cody, it would be a much smaller number if that was an indication that that all these price reductions were telling us that there's a crash.
Yeah,
So,
and the other thing is, on the other side of that coin is if the sellers price it too high, they have a different problem that we'll come back to here in a minute. But let's just say that it was actually totally visible across the whole marketplace and they're too high. Well, those buyers aren't going to just say, well, just because you priced it too high, I'll offer you that. They again, because of the efficiency of the marketplace, they can look at the same comps you look at and they'll say, well, this is what I think it's really worth. And you'll see people offering lower than what's being asked out there.
in fact, I often see when there's somebody who priced the home too high, you're dying by a death of 1,000 cuts, right? You got to keep cutting, keep cutting, keep cutting. It shows me a few things, but what it really ends up happening with my buyers is the assumption is, oh, well, if they already took 30,000, then they're off. They're probably really willing to take 20,000 more off. Like there's an assumption that there's an even better deal to be had. So you're losing more when you list it too high rather than letting it be priced correctly and maybe having the people reach for it, or maybe a bidding war if that's the proper market for that.
Well, and we saw that in the data. We didn't put this on any of the slides, but I did notice that you would see that there were some houses that sold for less than they were originally asking, but more than the final asking price, which means that they did price reductions and then somebody came in and offered them more than that price reduction, not less. And so,
which might have been what should have been priced at to begin with.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's what we hope happens in the market, is that the buyers and sellers' interests eventually come to that equilibrium.
Absolutely. So I know, again, we're talking to both buyers and sellers as well as realtors here. And I do think, though, even though we're going to lean a little bit more into a realtor-esque conversation in this next part, I do think it's important for buyers and sellers to pay attention. I love what your goal and mission is with your brand and with your business, Cody, how you really are trying to break down the walls that seem the illusion of, the delusional, weird, invisible walls here that are on both sides of the fence. Everybody sees that wall, but it doesn't need to be there. You're breaking it down between buyers and sellers and the public and us as realtors. There's a lot of, we always say there's a lot of distrust. There's a lot of assumption that we're just out to make a quick buck. And whilst, there are anomalies, there are people who are doing that. The majority of our industry just wants to do a good job. And I want to remind buyers and sellers, our job is to serve you so that you will keep coming back. It's not our job to just rip you off and get out the door. So when we are working with sellers, the goal is never, at least for me, and I know most realtors, it's never to gouge you. It's to get it sold. We make money when you get it sold. And so there. So walk me through the process of kind of the discussions between seller and listing agent and the seller, because I think that's important for buyers to understand as well.
Yeah, what prompted all of this was that I was talking with our transaction coordinator, Stacy, who's amazing, by the way. And she does transaction coordination for lots of realtors. And she was saying, man, I'm just seeing this all over the place where listing agents are having a hard time with sellers coming up with a price that's actually going to work. And, this is something I've noticed, that an inexperienced agent really struggles with this, but even really experienced agents, and I've been in lots and lots of listing appointments, done lots and lots of listings. I'll tell you that there is sometimes this awkwardness between the seller and the listing agent.
Right.
And it feels like the seller thinks that the listing agent is trying to push them down on their price that they should be willing to take. And one of the reasons I want to speak so loudly about this is because that's actually not what's going on inside of the realtors.
Right.
They get paid more if it sells for more. So those
you get paid more when you make more money. We all make more when you make more. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's actually some real dangers to pricing it too high that most sellers don't see. And what it is this is what's causing it. Sellers are afraid that if they price it too low, they're going to leave money on the table. So we've already talked about why I don't think that really happens in practice. And so they'll oftentimes say, well, let's just see what happens if we price it too high. Right. Yeah. Well, and sometimes they don't even know it's too high. They just want to see if it's too high. Okay. Yeah. And what I do is I describe it as like there's a flow of buyers like a river. And if you are 1 inch outside of the water, you're outside of the flow. Yeah. It's almost like you're not even on the market. And that obviously is going to hurt you, because the way you sell your house for the highest amount is to get the most number of people to see it.
Right.
So yeah, there's this weirdness that goes on between the sellers and the listing agents. And what I've concluded, having thought about this a lot, is that pricing it too high almost always hurts you, but pricing it too low almost never does. So in our market, at least, there should almost be a propensity to if you're going to miss on the low side.
Yeah.
Now, you can see in the data that a lot of it is really tightly packed, that they sold for what it was listed for originally, which means, a little bit of a pat on the back for realtors in Las Vegas. That means that we're doing a pretty decent job. But the ones who aren't are where we're seeing all of those price reductions, because if you're not in that flow of buyers, you're not getting that traffic, and you feel that straight away.
Well, there's a couple of components to that, but let's look at that data again, Cody, and talk about just, for example, just it costs you more money if you ask me, in terms of like doing exactly what you just said. If you price it too low, too high, it's going to cost you, and it shows in the data just from that last 2 weeks of data that we just ran. When we ran that, out of the 918 sold homes that sold for the original list price or more had an average days on market of 16 days. So that's money in your pocket, right? That's all it took, was those average days of 16 days to get that money in the bank and move forward. But the ones with price reductions, the average days on market were 102 days.
Yeah.
86 days difference. It cost you 86 more days, 86 more days of payments and all the things as a seller, and 86 more days as a realtor to wait for that to happen, along with the price reductions on both sides to get it done.
Yeah, and this goes also into this thing that I think that we as a human race, we should be having this conversation more upfront with each other, between sellers and buyers and realtors, is that lots of times people think that if I price it high, then I got to just be patient for the right
Right.
person to come along, right? And if I price it too low, I'm going to leave money on the table. But what we see is that the of all the ones that sold above list price, these are the ones that sold above list price, not below list price. Those ones had the shortest time on market.
Yeah.
So that means that you had the right product at the right
Yeah.
price and it moved.
I've come to the conclusion, well, before I say that, I want to say when we see houses with price reductions, the first thing that goes into your mind is, if there's a bunch of them, is, oh, the market's crashing, the market's softening. Then if you're looking at a house that you've been watching sit on the market that's doing death by 1,000 cuts, as a buyer and even as a buyer's agent, the first question is, what's wrong with this house? The first question is, something's going on here. Immediately it has a wet blanket on top of it that either makes you think something's wrong, so you dig in harder, or it's just, it looks like it's a defunct property, if you will. The other thing too is I've come to the conclusion that I think we as realtors are the problem here. We are the problem. I mean, I like to blame the media a lot. There's a problem there too with like clickbait headlines, but we're the problem. If we are not doing right and doing the exact pricing the way it's supposed to, it leads to the trickle domino effect, or whatever you want to call it, that leads to this conversation. We don't price it right. For whatever reason, then that leaks out to that's what everybody sees. Then we're death by 1,000 cuts. Then the public perception now of our market is that they're going to wait to buy, or that, that things are softening. And it really is it's a cycle that goes around and round and round that affects us on all sides. So I think, from a realtor perspective, I'm glad I have you in my corner, Cody. You are my mentor and have been, and have taught me so much, as well as hundreds of other realtors. And I'm grateful because I know that I'm serving my clients with the highest level of confidence that I'm going to do the right thing by them, both buyers and sellers. And I feel bad for those other agents who either haven't taken the time to be educated, or who don't have the strength to stand up to the sellers and say, what you just said. You have to do it right, or you will lose money. It's going to cost you more. So I'm grateful for you. Comment below if you guys have ever sold a house, and tell me just briefly, like what your experience was. Like, did you push for it to be higher and have that experience? It's okay if you did. We've all done it. And also or just list what you listed it for, what you sold it for, and what the difference was between what you and your realtor wanted. I would love to hear in the comments if you can. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that go into this conversation. We're talking about price reductions and how that kind of leads to the public perception of a crash that is not happening. At the end of the day, whether you're a realtor watching this, a buyer or a seller, it's a great time to buy a house in Las Vegas. It's a great time to sell a house if you do it right. We are not in a position right now to be concerned with, oh gosh, we're crashing. It's going to be 2008 again. Why isn't it going to be 2008 again? What we went through in the crash? Can you explain that to me, Cody?
Yeah, in the 25 years I've been paying attention that I mentioned before, we've only seen it crash one time. And so when we ask ourselves, well, what were the market fundamentals at that time? And are we seeing the same thing now? Right. So there's a few things that make now really different than then. And there's other things that can make a market go down, that can make prices soften for sure. But like if you're talking about a crash, there have to be certain things that have caused it to bubble up. And that means that there's like frothiness in the market that has to pop. The bubble has to pop and has to come back to reality. Back in 05, 6, and then 7, as we started to see the crash, we had a few very interesting things going on. One was the fog a mirror mortgage. If you could fog a mirror, you could get the mortgage. And sometimes even if you couldn't, you could get the mortgage. The lending requirements were way, way more relaxed. And after that crisis, they tightened way down. And since then, yes, they have loosened, but they haven't loosened even close to the extent that they were in like 05, 04, right?
Right.
So the other thing is, this was a sign back then. This was something that was making me go, I don't know, this sounds a little bit bad, is that home builders had these long waiting lists, but they wouldn't let investors on there, only owner occupiers, right? And the home builders were saying, we know this isn't a bubble because we don't have any investors buying houses. And I was like, well, if you have to prevent them from going on the waiting list, then maybe that's a sign that it is a bubble, right?
Yeah.
And there were a lot of other things like that. But we don't have either of those two things that are sort of indicators of a bubble. Now, can there be some overpricing. Yeah, we're seeing the price reductions are bringing it back to where it should be. But I don't think that necessarily means it's going to be a crash, because again, supply and demand is what determines the home
Yeah.
prices, and those fundamentals look pretty good for us. And everybody who thinks the market's going to crash, I always ask them, just tell us what things you're seeing that make you think it's going to crash. And it can't just be, well, prices have been high. That's not a good sign for it. There have to be other things that would indicate it.
Absolutely. You guys see why I bring this guy on the channel, and I'm appreciative that I get to speak to your audience too. Thank you, Cody. I'm just going to be here cheerleading you because you've done wonders for my business with that kind of brain on you. Thank you again for that. We talk a lot on my channel, and I know, Cody, you're starting to do more live streams, and you have a podcast coming. So stay tuned if you're a realtor, and be sure to subscribe on where you're watching. Let's go to the comments though for a minute and just see what everybody's saying about this. I'm not going to go through all of them, guys, because we've been on for a bit, but I do want to talk through a couple of comments I just saw come up. Let's see here. One of them was, where did it go? I lost it. Oh, and Angel said, our house listed in 3 days, not in Vegas, and we already have a cash offer. Did we list it too low? Cody, what would you say?
Well, I would need to ask a few more questions. I know Angel. We know Angel.
All right.
Yeah, so I would have to ask a few more questions, but here's what I would be thinking if I was in your situation. Did I have a bunch of traffic, and did I allow enough time for that traffic to give me offers, right? So if I've had it on the market for just 3 days, I had tons of traffic, and the first one that came through as a cash offer, I don't know. You might want to pause and see what else you're going to get there. Now, the counter argument to that is, if you have a good agent who has had these discussions with you openly, you've looked at the comparables together, you've considered what's happening in the marketplace, and you've priced it to sell, then you shouldn't be surprised that somebody comes along and buys it at the price you've said, because you set yourself up for success. And so I always say to people, if you get everything you want, how do you feel bad about that?
Yeah, I think it's also something that I tell people who are moving to Vegas and who are selling their home first. The number one thing I say is, you're in control. I need you to keep that in mind. You're in control. A lot of people, when they list their home for sale, they forget about that, or they get worried about turning bird in a hand, right? That syndrome. They get worried about turning down any offers. They get worried about the idea that that's the only buyer they're going to get if it's not a crazy market like what we've seen here in Vegas. So I always remind people, you're in control, and because you're relocating or because of this scenario, you need to make sure you get what you want. Same thing goes if you're not relocating. If you're listing a home and you think you might have listed it too low, and you got that first offer and it kind of makes you question it, ask the buyer to hold off, to give you a little more time. You're in control. Don't forget that. And because of that fact, you get to control the narrative. There's a whole conversation behind that we could go on for hours about the psychology of this.
There's another little thing I'll just mention here, is that there are some things that are more valuable than money. Right. So sometimes the accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish so you can go accomplish something else and improve your lifestyle, or move to the great city of Las Vegas, that might be worth it, to not just scrape every little last drop out of it. So be careful. Obviously, there's a lot of things to balance there, but sometimes just accomplishing what you want is a lot of value.
This is a question from Slipknot Michelle. Says, when it comes to working with clients that are in an expired listing, you're a realtor, it sounds like. If the home was priced correctly but didn't sell, do you recommend putting the property back on the MLS at the same price? So this is actually a great question, Michelle. From a realtor perspective, this is what we talk about as realtors with each other. To the buyers and sellers that are watching right now, there's a lot of people who are very smart, who know how to click and look at the history of a listing, and who can tell if you've done that relist it thing. It's a trick that a lot of realtors try to do. What's your say on that?
Yeah, I think this is Cody de Michelle. So shout out to Cody, even though he spells it with a K. So I might be wrong, but I think that's who it is. Yeah, I would say if the price was right, the price was right. It must not have sold. It must have failed to sell for some other reason. And if you can solve that other reason and have it at the right price, then you could put it right back out there at the same price, and you might very well be super successful in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Okay, let's see if we've got, Oscar says, are people asking too much for their home? Is that why we're seeing the higher listed homes? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the general answer is, when you see price reductions, it's because, yes, they came out of the gate too high. Again, remember what I was saying in the very beginning, is that buyers come out there in high demand. Sellers react to that by kind of pushing out ahead of the comparables. And sometimes you can get away with that because the market's moving towards that. But if inventory is slowly increasing and prices are either flat or slightly decreasing, then you're going to have to come back to what would have been the right number from the very beginning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's see what else. We got a couple other questions and then we'll pop off. Looks like somebody said, I thought this started at 6. We did start at 6, didn't we? I thought we did. Oh, if you missed us or we're late, just rewind. It's okay. Just rewind. While I'm looking for another question, I want to just say these are going to be live streams that Cody and I try to do moving forward. We're really trying to help Cody's mission. And I think it's going to be my mission too. I'm going to just jump on the bandwagon of breaking down the walls between realtors and that secret room we go into in the back of the, back of the house, and buyers and sellers. There is a lot of misinformation, a lot of just unfortunate events that happen that put this distrust in between us. And the reality is we all want to help. We all want to make this happen. We rely on this to keep our mouths fed and our families clothed and in a home. And I think it's important that the public understands how genuine most realtors are, and that the realtors understand where the public's coming from when it comes to all the information they're consuming before they come to you and get walked through the door, essentially. So we got some people coming and watching us from New Mexico. Hello. Park City, we got someone there. Hey, Cynthia, good to see you. Let's see here. Let's see. I'm looking. I thought I found another one. Do you see any that you want to answer? I thought there was one more.
I think I saw one that said Cody definitely knows his stuff. I have to agree.
I didn't see that one, Cody. I did not see that one at all. Alan J says KB Homes lowered the prices, but they're no longer giving incentives. Incentives went from 20 to now 5,000. Hey, Alan, glad you were visiting your home last week. That's awesome. Congrats on the purchase. So, there's a lot of just misunderstanding, I guess, of the market. So I guess to wrap up our conversation, Cody, is the reality of the situation is the market in Las Vegas is not crashing. So realtors and buyers and sellers, just so you know, we're not seeing a crash anywhere nearby. The market is doing a little bit of rebalancing. And so right now is an amazing time for you as realtors to get out there and let people know that it is a great time to sell and a great time to buy. And that if you're doing it right and you have someone like Cody in your pocket, or our Synergy community that Cody is the founder of at our EXP brokerage, if you are a part of what we do, you will be educated and supported to do that the right way. And then for buyers and sellers, I'm here. I love you. I know there's realtors in the comments, but I'm putting out the content, my loves. I'm here. I'm here for you, bringing the hope of home ownership. It is a great time to get a good deal. And a good deal does not always mean lowering the price of the home. We know how to make a good deal happen that's almost invisible to the world, but you and your wallet, as well as the sellers, will be happy. So if you're interested in moving to Vegas, or you want to get in touch with me, there's a barcode in the corner. Please scan it, make an appointment. I'd love to chat with you. Cody, give yourself a plug. This was awesome. Well, I'm super happy.
I really hope that buyers and sellers, and especially buyers, are listening to this and will have these kinds of conversations with trying to choose their realtor. I mean, first of all, they'd be nuts if they don't work with you, of course.
Thank you.
But let's just say it's in another state or something like that, right? These are the kinds of conversations that good realtors are having with their clients. If you're talking with a realtor and they're not discussing these topics, it means they're either afraid to or they don't know to. Both of those mean maybe there's somebody that's better qualified to represent you, because this stuff is actually really important. And it's like a litmus test for you to know the quality of the person that you're talking with. You got to be having these market discussions, strategy discussions. I mean, I can't even tell you how many buyers have come to me and they've been frustrated that they can't get their offers accepted. And I ask them, well, what's been your strategy? And it's like deer in the headlights.
Right.
They don't have a strategy. You've got to have a strategy or you're not going to be successful, whether you're buying or selling.
Right. We've got a couple other comments I'd love to feature. So we had the comment before that said, our house listed 3 days, not in Vegas, and we already have a cash offer. Was it too low? We've already answered that, but we got a little more context, Cody. I want to see what your answer is. We had 2 people look on the second day listed, and we're having an open house Saturday. Cash offer is at asking price, but we have not heard the entire offer, meaning any other stipulations. Do you think they listed it too low? They had 2 listings on the second day, or 2 showings on the second day it was listed.
No, I mean, that's not sounding to me like glaring alarm bells going off that it would be a bad idea to accept that offer. I would say that we helped you find that agent there, and I know that she's very competent. So she should be really dialed into that market and I would really lean on her advice, and whatever she says, I would go with.
And what I would like to say too is often as a somebody who's a seller, when you get a cash offer, 99% of the time, cash offers think cash is king, and they're almost always below list. Always as a starting point. That's my experience. So if they're at list price, that's probably telling me that they know it's going to be picked up by someone. So they want to get it and that they really want the house. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So if you're trying to sell it and you were okay listing it there, you should be okay selling it there. If you're trying to list it low to get a bidding war, that's a whole nother conversation. Okay, got another one. Alan says, is Taylor Morrison a reliable quality builder? They're seeing new builds in Pahrump, new pumps in Burrill. I was going to say new builds in Pahrump. Alan, you better be working with me, my love. I know that we know each other. I know that we've been doing this thing on live for a long time. Taylor Morrison is a good builder. I've sold a couple of the homes. I'll just be very honest. They're not my favorite builder. And that's all I'll say about that. So if you'd like me to tell you who my favorite builders are and indicate where in Pahrump we would love to help you buy, you know what to do, Alan. Come on, man. You've been watching me for a long time. Let's see here. I think, oh my gosh, did I come across something that said Cody rocks? I did. I'll give Cody a moment here. Hi, Laci. Cody rocks. Yes, you do. Okay, Cody, I'd like to wrap it up. I want to just once again thank my audience for tuning in. And I want to thank you for letting me speak in front of your audience. Really, really honored that we are kind of starting to collaborate on this and do what I think is the right thing to do, which is bringing sellers and buyers as well as our realtor teams into one room to talk about the same stuff. So if you're thinking about moving to Vegas, you know what to do. Cody, what do you want people to do? They can call me and I'll put you in touch with Cody. That's what you
I
can do.
want people to move to Vegas as well.
I want realtors who are watching, anybody, even if you're not in Las Vegas, if you're anywhere in the country, Cody is an amazing mentor. I'm going to cheerlead you here for a minute. We didn't put anything up for you to contact Cody because we're still working on him being okay with this live stream thing. So you can come through me, scan that barcode. I'll get you in touch with Cody. We would love to talk to you and get you over here and get you learning from this synergy community because we are all rock stars. Thanks
I will
to you.
just say to realtors, like you really do. I think that right now, our collaboration, instead of competing against each other and knocking each other all the time, is really key to us getting the message out to buyers and sellers of the value that we bring to the table. I believe with all sincerity of heart that there is value in somebody being represented in a real estate transaction.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We owe it to the general public as realtors to do our job the right way, be working together, make this be smooth for them.
Awesome. Thank you for that. My core value, one of my main core values in life is collaboration over competition. So it's wonderful for me to see so many realtors tune in tonight. Please keep tuning in and I'm wishing everybody luck and the market's not crashing. It's a juicy, crunchy time to get a great deal. Let's talk about